Welcome back everyone, and this week we're going to be covering what I've been asking you guys if you guys would like to see, and that's to make a budget mixing station. Hopefully we can make it under $100. Stay tuned, we got a ton of stuff to cover, so let's jump right in. When it comes to the parts list, here you're going to be able to see it, what I got at Lowe's, what I got at Home Depot, as well as what I got on Amazon. Now I won't have the prices till the very end of the video, so if you guys do want to check that out, stick to the end. We'll be able to cover whether we stayed in budget, over budget, or exactly where we ended up. Now be sure to look in the description. I will have the links to the Amazon products as well as the sizes that I ended up cutting the 2x4s. Now with the whole parts list out of the way, the first thing that is to build is going to be the stand. I'm going to walk you guys through. After that, we'll take care of the plumbing. Believe it or not, before you know it, we'll have this thing complete. A few other basic tools you are going to need is a miter saw, a square, a pencil, and a tape measure to measure out all the sizes we're going to be cutting. Now what I'm doing here is actually marking out 20 inches. I'm the type of person, when it comes to woodworking, I like to cut everything out at the beginning. I know some people like to cut as they go. For me, this works a little bit better. So once I do have them marked, I get my square, use a pencil, mark it, so then when it comes to putting them on the saw, it's a lot easier. They're marked and I'm not hunting around for anything. When everything is said and done, you should have a total of 4 of these that are measuring 20 inches. They will be the front and the back faces for the base of where the containers are going to sit on. It may not make sense right now, but a little bit later you'll see exactly where they go. With those done, next we're going to have to cut 11 pieces marked at 17 inches. So the same way we marked and cut our 20, you got to do it for the 17. And again, we're going to need 11 pieces of these. With everything cut, we can now start assembling, making sure everything's right. You can check your measurements again. So we're going to start first with building the 2 bases. You're going to need 2 20-inch pieces and 2 17-inch pieces to make the square that you're seeing here. So I'm happy with everything's looking. I checked the measurements. Everything looks to be lining up. So next it's going to be time to assemble them. So there's various ways to do it. You can obviously drill a hole, put a screw, or like me, you can get a Kreg jig, slot them out, and it makes your job a lot easier. This Kreg jig, if you do purchase one, guess what? It not only is good for this, but it's good for a lot of stuff around the house. If you want to make some furniture, or just do any type of basic or pretty intricate woodworking, they really come in handy. I have all the bases slotted. You can actually see them here. So up next is going to be to assemble them. I actually have a Kreg vise as well. It's a vise for a corner. Trust me, they make a lot of accessories. If you head over to Lowe's, head over to Home Depot, they have tons of accessories, super easy, and really makes woodworking a lot easier. I know if I would have done it any other way, it wouldn't have been impossible. It just would have taken a little bit more work. Now with the box built, you could go ahead and locate 2 of your 2x4s cut to 17 inch, and these are actually going to go on the top as you see here. And what these are going to do, this is a platform where the containers or whatever you're using is going to sit. Now what I did, I measured from the outside ends 6 inches on either side, and that's kind of how I got the placement. But this is going to really depend on what container you're using, the dimensions of those, as to where exactly you're going to put them. Once you have the second one installed and you also build a second platform, it's identical to the first one, you should end up with two structures that look something like this. Of course, like I've mentioned before, if you're using some smaller containers or bigger containers, you're going to have to alter the sizes. But if you're using something like I'm using, the ones cut at 20 inch and 17 inch is all you're really going to need. Next, we're going to have to cut the legs for the bottom platform. Now, what's really going to determine the length on this is how high you're going to want it off the ground. For me personally, I want it high enough, since it is gravity fed, to be able to slide a bucket under there. So obviously we can fill it. If you do it too short, you won't be able to slide a bucket, and the gravity side of it probably won't function as well as it should. So if you want to do it like I did, you're going to have to cut 4 legs at 12 inches. Once you do have those 4 cut, remember we have to slot them, in my scenario, with the Kreg jig. Now you have everything slotted, you can go ahead and install them. Again, I'm using a clamp just to help me out. If you have someone around that can help you, you probably could get away without the clamp. But again, this is another reason why I really like the Kreg setup. They have a whole ecosystem of tools, fasteners, and it just makes it that much easier. Not to mention, if you pay close attention, once this thing is assembled, you won't be able to see any screws, any holes, because the slots actually are hidden from view, so it makes it look a lot cleaner when you are done. Now the 17-inch pieces we cut, remember we should have 3 left as of now. 2 of them are going to be installed on the bottom of the legs. You can see here, this is just to hold everything together to make sure if you bump into it or if you move it, it's not swaying, making it unstable, because I think the last thing we want is all this water tipping over, whether your garage or wherever you have it installed. So these supports are going to guarantee that that doesn't happen, so it's nice and sturdy when it's all built. Now with the whole bottom platform, I don't know about you, but it looks really clean. You can really see here how the Craig setup allows no holes to be visible, no screws to be visible. So you really end up looking like you've been doing woodworking for a long time. No, but all joking aside, I'm really happy how it's coming out. Now all we got to do is work on the top platform for the top bin, and then we should be done with the stand. Now we need to create the top supports that's going to be where the top base is going to mount onto. This is where the container is going to sit. So I do already have these cut out. We're going to need a total of 4. Now these are cut to 31 inches. This is also going to guarantee that there's enough room for the ball valve that we're going to be using down the road. Again, it may not make sense now, but later on you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about. So all I'm doing right now is just slotting again with the Craig jig these legs that again have been cut to 31 inches. Now that those are complete, we can go ahead and mount them to the bottom base to then attach the top base to. Once all that's complete, it should look a little something like this. Once at this step, you're pretty much home free. You're just missing the last 17-inch piece, which I'll show you a little bit later where it goes. It attaches to the rear. But getting to this step probably shouldn't take you more than about an hour, I'd say 2 hours max. And as you guys can see, it's very simple to do. Now into the plumbing and drilling, this is going to be pretty straightforward. So what I'm doing now is just drilling a hole for the Uniseal. Now you want to be careful. I am using a step drill bit. With a step drill bit, they're very convenient, but you can drill too much. So keep an eye, go slow, because once you go too far, it's going to be a little bit difficult to go back. Assuming you took your time and everything's proper, you just locate your Uniseal, and it should very easily slide in. It's going to take a little bit of pressure to push it in, but that's what you want. You don't want it to go in too loose. You want it to be a little bit tight, not too tight, but just enough. When it comes to the total count of PVC used, everything is in 3/4 inch. So I use a total of 3 ball valves, 2 Uniseals, 2 T's, and 9 90s. Now I know you may not be seeing them here because I had some of them misplaced, but you can rest assured that when it's all said and done, that was the total tally. So I'm going to start by gluing the PVC pieces that are going to be going here to the bottom of the RODI bin. I've already talked about the cement I'm using. This stuff is really good. It sets very slowly, so it gives you quite a bit of working time. But all in all, it's a glue I really recommend because it needs no primer. So if you guys are looking for cement, I highly recommend it. I will have a link in the description for you guys to check out. So here I slide a piece of the PVC inside, then I attach the T. Followed by that, I install the ball valve, and then I start extending, and then I extend a 90 to go to the rear, and this is what's going to push the water out to be gravity fed from this container. So the ball valve is going to control it draining into the salt bin, and the one going to the back is going to control any RODI that you want gravity fed out of the mixing station. Now believe it or not, once you do get to this point, you're pretty much done with the top plumbing of the RODI bin. As you can see, it's not really that difficult. It's really straightforward, and it should hopefully look something like this. I figured for the rest of the PVC, instead of boring you guys through my trial and error, because with PVC, sometimes it takes a little bit of trial and error, so I didn't want to bore you guys. I figured I'd just show you guys the final product, then walk you through it. So as you guys saw earlier, you can see it here installed. So this is the RODI bin. This is a salt bin. When you want to get water from that bin to this bin, you very simply just open up your ball valve and water drains out through here. Now once that's done filling, you can close that up. Now let's say you want to get water from your RODI bin into your bucket. So you'd put your bucket there, you'd go ahead and open this valve, and what that does, with that valve closed, it diverts the water this way, comes here, comes this way, and then comes down. Now let's say you have your water already mixed in here and you want to get water out of it, right? Because this is a salt bin. What you would do, very simple, open this, and then it's going to drain from the bottom. It comes this way, comes across through here, and then you're also able to fill your bucket. So here you can see all the PV pieces that were used. You can see the T, the ball valve, 90, 90, 90, another 90, ball valve to a T, to another ball valve, to another 90. And if we look on the bottom, there's another 90 there, followed by another 90, and then lastly this 90 here. Now make sure you do dry fit everything. Don't glue it till you're really happy with how it looks. More important, the way it functions. Now one important thing, thankfully for me, I have a 3D printer, and you're probably seeing these really nice mounts I designed. Well, these I actually did design for them. Anytime you're dealing with PVC that's going a pretty long span, it needs to be supported. If it's not supported, you're putting strain on, in this case, the uniseal. If you had a bulkhead, it'd be on the bulkhead, and you risk over time it failing. So if you guys do need these, I can make them for 3/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 1 inch, whatever you need them. I will have my email in the description. So if you guys are looking to get some of these, I can certainly have them made. Now I try to make it as low profiles as I could, so when you're looking at it straightforward, it looks nice and clean. So if you guys remember earlier, I mentioned you guys, you should have a 17-inch 2x4 laying around. That one goes here on the back. Now this I do with the pocket holes facing the rear, because this is going to be the back of it, so I don't want it in the front. Now you don't need to do it on the front section. Here in the back should be plenty, and this is just going to make sure that it doesn't sway from right to left. The last thing to add is going to be this float valve. This is going to be where the RODI water comes in, and once the float is triggered, much like a toilet, it's going to stop the flow from coming in. More importantly, so you don't overflow wherever you have your mixing station. I'm going to be using a smaller step drill bit. I actually have a few of them. And again, same as always, make sure you don't go too far, and just make it the right size for the inner gray piece here with the threads. So once you locate where your RODI is going to be coming in from, whether the right side, left side, rear, I mean even the front if you really wanted to, that's the side you're going to drill your hole. So again, just so it looks a little bit cleaner. So I've already figured out that it's going to be out of the left side for this one in specific, so I'm going to drill it right about here. You want to have it as high as possible. Why? Because it's only going to fill to that level. So if I were to put it here in the middle or near the middle, guess what? When the water reaches here, that's where it's going to stop. So try and get it as high as you can, not too high where you're structurally going to sacrifice the integrity of whatever it is, a container. So in this scenario, I'm going to remove the cap, and just under, I'm going to use this as a reference, but just under this lip here, because obviously we want to be able to access it as well. It's important when you're doing this, remember, do not over drill it, go step by step. If you slightly do over drill it, it wouldn't be the end of the world, because this O-ring they provide is quite big, so it can make up for that. But you know, you don't want to rely on that if you don't have to. It's a good idea to also do it from the inside, making sure you don't enlarge the hole just to clean up any burrs. So poke that right through the hole. Then get the nut. Now getting an adjustable wrench here, once you have the location, verify by physically looking at it, and it looks good there. So I have an adjustable wrench here. Now you don't want to go crazy tight, but you do want it tight. There we go, that should be good. Make sure on the other piece when you're removing it that you didn't lose, there's a little piece of plastic. It's a little bit difficult to get out. If it does fall out, make sure you look at the way it fell out. It's kind of conical shaped, and the conical shape faces forward because as you're, I believe it's called a compression nut. As you're tightening this, it compresses on the RODI line itself to make sure it's a very solid seal. There we go. So we'll put that there so we don't lose that little piece on the inside, and that is good to go. So I have it here, it's actually being filled up right now. I put it over the grass. If for any reason it starts leaking, at least the grass will get watered. It shouldn't leak, I don't expect it to leak, but if it does happen, at least I'm better prepared. So we'll wait for the top one to fill. We'll let it hold water for a little bit, make sure the uniseal is holding. Once that is done, we'll go ahead and drain it to the bottom, make sure that uniseal is working. Then we'll test out the RODI gravity drain, which is this one, and then we'll test out the saltwater drain, which is this one. Well, let's test this one out. 1, 2, and so that's all being gravity fed. The bottom one has been holding the water, Uniseal's holding up very well. So now we can go ahead and actually test the drains. We'll start first with the RODI, make sure that works. There we go. So with this drain, we're actually draining out of this container, which is the RODI. That doesn't seem to have any problems. Next, we'll drain out of the salt mixing bin. We'll wait for that one to stop draining out. Okay, next is the salt mixing bin. I guess if you want them both draining out, you could also do that. I don't know why you would want to do that, but you can do it if you want. We'll close this bottom one out. Looks like it's all done. Everything's drained out. Now, when you guys look inside your bins, you're gonna notice there's probably, I don't know, maybe like a gallon, 2 gallons in there. It's common for there to always be water inside the tanks. It's very difficult to get all of it out because, again, it had gravity fed. Not to mention the Uniseal is slightly higher, the PVC piece on the inside. So it's gonna be very common for you to always have water that's left in there. A prime example are these 2 mixing bins. Both of these, there is always 5 gallons left over no matter what I do. So don't freak out if you do have some water left in there. It's perfectly normal, so I wouldn't stress at all over it. All there is to do now is glue it. I've talked numerous times and referred you guys to this cement. It's OD Fusion. It's a single step, so that means it needs no primer. It's cement and primer all in one. On top of that, it dries clear, and if all that wasn't enough, it gives you a pretty long working time, a lot longer than your standard PVC cement. So if you're looking to try something that's really easy to use and very forgiving, you could probably pick this up at either Lowe's, Home Depot, or even Amazon for that matter. I'll have a link in the description for Amazon if you guys don't want to drive somewhere or want to go get it or don't want that hassle. Check the description for that. It's always good when you're about to glue PVC, you have a pencil or something to mark, and you could later take it off. So you want to mark the face of the PVC. That determines how far in you're going to push it. And you also want to make a mark to align them both at the right angle. Now, if you do this with everything, you're almost guaranteed not to mess it up. And again, don't be afraid about these markings. With some rubbing alcohol and it all comes right off. So got this all glued up. I'm actually really happy how it looks. If you guys want to personalize it a little bit more, you can obviously sand it, paint it, use filler, make it look really nice. Now, if you don't care about that and you're happy the way it is, there's no problem. Start using it the way you see it here. So guys, that's going to wrap up this week's video on the mixing station. Hopefully you guys learned something. More importantly, hopefully I motivated you guys. Make your own mixing station so you see it's really not that difficult. The last thing that you are going to need to do to the mixing station is obviously put a pump, a wave maker, anything like that in the bin to mix the salt. Obviously add the salt and you can go ahead and start mixing it. Depending on where you live, you may or may not need a heater, not only where you live, but where you also have the mixing station. So that's really going to depend on you. Now, I did design this mixing station to later be able to be upgraded to have a pump that's able to push out water through a hose, such as the automatic hose reel I have here. So if you followed the design that I did here, it's going to be an upgrade you're going to be able to do, and I actually plan to do that video a little bit later. Now, the reason I didn't do it now, number one, the plumbing's a little bit more complicated. I wouldn't say complicated, there's just a few more pieces of plumbing. Also, the main reason I didn't do it is because the pump. Once you start pushing water through a reduced 1/2-inch hose, guess what? It creates a lot of head pressure. So you need a pretty big pump. With the bigger pump comes more money. And I figured instead of just telling you guys this is the only way you can do it, I figured I'd show you guys a budget way where it's all gravity fed, and later you can grow into something with a pump, which is much like my mixing station uses. Now, for you guys wondering what this is, I'm actually going to be giving this to a local reefer. His name's Reef and Chill. He's been super nice. He's been taking care of my corals. He doesn't know I'm doing this for him. As far as the lettering, it was going to be a surprise, but I'm pretty sure he's going to watch this video and he's going to see. I mean, I'll wait. Maybe some of you know who he is. Maybe you'll DM him and let him know. But we'll see. Maybe he doesn't even watch my videos. Maybe he won't even see this till he comes pick it up, because it was originally going to be a surprise. If you guys, again, do need these 3D printed mounts to hold down the PVC, Be sure to check out in the description. You can go ahead and email me whether you need them for 3/4 or 1/2 inch, whatever size, I can get them made. I guess if you really wanted something like this, I can easily 3D print that. Now be sure to check out the description because I'm also going to have the sizes of the wood. I'm going to try my best to have everything listed there. Any links to uniseals, ball valves, and anything I pretty much purchased online, you'll be able to check out there. I won't have links to the PVCs themselves because that just run to Home Depot, run to Lowe's, and you can pick them up just like I did. Now, just like I promised at the beginning, here's the whole part list tallied up, and as you can see, we went over budget by a total of 40 bucks. Now you may notice in the Amazon, I put the pump as optional. The reason I did that, because a lot of us have pumps laying around, wave makers, what have you. The good thing is, if you do go with this pump, you can actually attach a hose to it, and if your tank is close enough, you can certainly send the water directly to the tank. So thank you guys very much for joining me on this week's episode. I'd love to hear down in the comments what you would do different. If you guys liked it, what you would change. So that's gonna be it, guys. I really hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode. I thank each and every one of you very much for watching. And as always, reef and chill.